Welcome to the I Need Coffee and Better Ideas podcast, where we caffeinate your brain with the freshest takes in news media. We're lucky at Norkon because we're working with a really cool company out of Denmark called Better Collective. And even cooler, they have a person whose name is Pernille Holbøll, which is my Norwegian pronunciation of that name. And she's joining our podcast today. Welcome to the show, Pernille.
Thank you, Biwa. That's my Danish version of Biwa.
Yeah, and now all my English speaking friends who may or may not listen to this podcast are going to go, what? That's an interesting pronunciation of my name. Super cool to have you on. Again, we always do this, full transparency. Better Collective is a client of Norkon, and we're very happy to work with you. So, in order to kick this off in the normal fashion that we do, Pernille, how did you end up where you are today?
Where do I begin? Well, the short version is from law school to journalism school, from journalism school to an internship in one of the largest digital media in Denmark, Ekstra Bladet, which is a part of JP Politikens Hus. And there and before was my opening for getting my hands on a lot of things, were the fact that I was super interested in the digital phases of journalism, whether it being the research phase or how, we distributed our content, social media. At that time, it's 13, 14 years ago. And there was a lot of focus still on print media and how you sort of became the one who had the front page. I was more interested in how did I measure how many readers I have on my own articles, and what tools could I use being outside the house, going out doing journalism. So how could I report from the scenes and so on. So basically it sparked an already growing interest with everything digital, from tools to a little bit of coding to homepages and so on. And then just very quickly, if you're just half decent at something that is starting to really being more important in the businesses, or at least I quickly got some more responsibility. I liked it. I like being, able to say, let's do this and let's do something more. So that quickly escalated to me moving on to basically almost every major media in Denmark, at least. Been to DR, worked with Danish Media Corporation, worked for Metro Express, which was also at that time, and they wanted to change from a broadsheet paper to a digital news media brand targeting a young audience. So I had a few years there. Then I had a few years at TV2, also big Danish media broadcasting company, but leading their more digital setup. And returning to Ekstra Bladet and JP Politikens Hus, actually as editor-in-chief. And right before Better Collective, BT Berlingske Media as the executive editor-in-chief. And then a year and a half ago, almost, Better Collective, where the adventure was also working with an international media portfolio. It's all over the world. We have different media brands. So sort of one thing led to another. That's how I ended up here. It wasn't a super intentional career path, but the common factor is anything digital, media, journalism, strategic, like what's the next big thing and what is interesting a couple of years from now. I like being in that zone.
It's an interesting career that we're talking about here, and it's also interesting that you say that there's no real plan behind it. It's kind of like one thing after another, and it kind of just happens. That seems to be a fairly common theme among some of the people, at least, that we've had on this podcast so far. I wanted to dive a bit into sort of the shift from an editorial leadership in traditional media, and to your point, going more into sort of the international, perhaps more commercial role in an international digital media company like Better Collective. And in that, what's been the hardest mindset shift that you've had to make?
I mean, now I said it wasn't, an intentional career path, but there was some parts of it that has been very intentional. Actually, not forcing myself, but wanting to try and work more commercially with the business side of media. And also, this is a listed company, actually a dual listed company, which was also one of my on the to-do list, that I wanted to work within that framework of being a listed company with everything that comes with of good things and challenges. Then for me, it has been a very strong and very clear anchor that you sort of have when you have an editorial view and you have an editorial sort of starting point. All right, free press, finding the truth, being the population's trusted news source. And not to diminish it, it's sort of easy to grab onto those clear stars that you're leading.
Yeah.
And this is why you do it. I must admit, I have seen that where we might say that is the leading stars is not actually the truth behind the media company. It is still revenue. It is still finding a business model. I know we say, okay, it is to finance free journalism, and it is, but still, I wanted to be super prepared for the business part of media. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be more eager to find revenue models and pushing growth and digital innovation, always thinking what's in it. Is it a business model? Are we getting a return of investment? Forcing myself to think more business when it comes to media, because I generally and really believe that it is super, super important that we have people driving media who understands the business side of it as well.
That's a really good point. And I had something in my notes from when we had a bit of a prep before the podcast is, do you think traditional media professionals are underestimating the commercial realities of the industry? Because there are times when I'm thinking, there's almost too much ideology driven behind the journalism and the product of journalism. However, to your point, there's still a business to be run, right? So that needs to be a centerpiece of the mindset, at least of the management team and other pieces of the business. But do you think that there is still an underestimation in the traditional aspects of the industry, that the commercials have to add up?
I think there might be a gap between what is driving the business, like what is the core product of the business, and understanding, can we monetize on this? And are we expecting to be monetizing on this? So again, we see different media companies, they add to the business. It might be in the family of media, but it's different, different companies, or they're investing in something that's a bit on the side. It's not real media. If we take Denmark, for example, we have Hjælp Politikens Hus. They have a parcel service on the side, which is a good revenue for them. Is it media? Is it distribution? I mean, it runs in the family. But again, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think there is a gap between the commercial side of the media business and the ones actually producing and creating the most valuable thing that they have, which is the content, the formats, the original ideas, the true journalism, and so on. So it's like there's a cover-up game sometimes about why are we doing things, how are we doing it, and also who is running and making business solutions. Like what side do they stand on? And we try and stand on both grounds sometimes, I think, and not necessarily being completely transparent about where is the business and what are we expected to monetize on.
I think the aspects of traffic drivers, right? I think this has been discussed over quite many years. The need for focusing on other traffic drivers now. Usually, there's a lot of direct traffic. Still is in Scandinavia, to be fair, but you now have a more international outlook on things. Does that mean that SEO and social media and those channels are now increasingly important to you, or are you just kind of like just leaving those behind and hoping that everyone will just come directly to you?
No, not at all. Like, take, for example, SEO. It's not what Better Collective is built on only, but a very, very, very big part of our expertise, and the whole building of the company is based on a knowledge and expertise within SEO, and that has been ongoing discussion or prioritizing from the legacy media? Or is it something we are working with or leveraging? Or is it something that we sort of accidentally found out, there might be some traffic to get there, or there might be a model for our media to work within SEO? But for Better Collective, it is a core value and a core expertise for us. And that is something that, again, realizing that and truly understanding SEO is probably one of my, not revelations, but what I think I can work with every day is how do you combine that with a new media reality, with Google rolling out different plans in different regions,
Right.
whole AI in search. Like, it is a completely new day for SEO as well. And what does that mean for us? What does it mean for our media brands? So in that sense, you can say maybe legacy media never being that concerned with SEO. They're in the same place. But if I were legacy media and if I was working with a digital first strategy, I would 100% be super aware of what is happening with SEO. How does it work? How does it look? Especially with AI in the picture.
Yeah, especially with AI in the picture now, I can only speak for myself, and there's been some studies already, but I know now maybe where my 100% of my search for information before used to be Google, now I would say I'm down to 20% maybe. It's only if I'm looking for specific websites I'm now looking at Google. But if I'm searching for information, then ChatGPT and Perplexity is where I go. And I think I'm under a suspicion that that's going to be a quick shift in this space, but I'm no expert, so I'm not going to make predictions.
No,
Then
and the point is, none of us are experts on this, and none of us do have that crystal ball where we can see, okay, what is going to happen with AI? Exactly how is this going to play out? And also, that is why I think it's such a crucial period for media, for legacy media, for new media, but still to find out what is your core product, what is your core values. Is it a new opportunity or is it disrupting everything? Yeah, it's both, but you cannot rely on any quick fixes, or like we briefly discussed, like Facebook 15 years ago. Media couldn't wait to go to Facebook courses and put their money in Facebook formats and everything. And now, Facebook, Meta, everything is death of the media industry, or so it's perceived as so. And I'm like, okay, could we please learn something when new media platforms arises, or AI, which is not new. Like, the access to AI is super easy now. So what does that mean?
Well, my worry is that, to your point, that media companies will remake past mistakes. What are you doing right now at Better Collective to ensure that you're ahead of the curve and making sure that, we are a digital first company. We're going to be best in our niche. Therefore, we need to do X, Y, and Z in order to plan for that. Can you talk a little bit around that and how you ensure that the organization is structured around working in that way?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we're doing something right, which is making the decision to diverse the revenue streams in good time before something is closed up. Do you know what I mean? We're not waiting until someone has a gun to our head saying, okay, there's no more money in this, or Facebook is shutting down news, whatever. Early on, looking at, okay, how can we diverse the revenue stream? We're in the sports media industry. Okay, so owning the whole experience around sports and sportsmanship and the engagement of fans and so on. So that's one thing, not closing your eyes and just doing what you have been doing for years and years, which, I mean, I don't blame it. Media is it's journalism and it's news. But again, I think the business has probably been doing what they are used to be doing for too long before there was wake-up calls not invited by themselves, if you know what I mean. So that is one thing I'm trying to all the time try and look ahead, not to redo mistakes, but also trying to diverse anything we do. Like, is there a market for this? Is there a revenue model for this incentive or for this project? Where does this media fit in with the rest of our portfolio? So in a way, actually making more considered decisions in terms of how do we leverage all this new technology, all the competencies we have with SEO. How does that fit with media? Okay, it's not a one-to-one fit, because you need to have some editorial staff knowing how do we do things, understanding what lies behind it without taking, the unique parts out of the content creation and so on. So I think, to be honest, maybe it's a bad answer, but actually taking a bit more time to consider the steps or the recommendations that I come with, saying, okay, where are we putting our energy, in a bit more thought over way than I would probably have done 8-10 years ago, where I was like, yeah, full throttle on this. Let's just put everything here. And I mean, I'm more considerate and not afraid to take a little bit of time to understand what is happening, and also really, really value the people who do understand what is happening, knowing that you do not understand everything about what is happening right now with platforms, AI, but be the one that puts the pieces together. And I think also that is something that is missing maybe in general in the business. We're looking for these unicorn CEOs that are supposed to know everything about platform technology, AI, leadership, media, content, core values, democracy, what have you. It's not working if you do not select the teams around you and you have the best within the different areas, and then making sure they sort of push in the right direction.
That's a really good point, and it leads me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well. In terms of, you look at traditional media leader roles, right? They're typically from journalism, which is not inherently bad, but do you also think that if you are an outspoken and to a certain degree almost self-promotional, do you think that that takes you to, and there's a two-parter to this question, do you think that takes you further up the career ladder? And also, does that create somewhat of a bias where you also bring people with you who are similar to you, and then perhaps leaving out other people who could have perhaps, with the right space around them, being brought up to take more responsibility in leadership roles in media companies, where new ideas is necessary almost, well, I would say at an increasingly fast pace now, because you have to stay on top of things. To your point, it's an ever-changing space.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a leading question, but but I definitely think that there is a challenge of creating the space, and also putting your chips in the right leadership teams and in the right people, because I was probably a very not typically editor-in-chief, because it's not like I'm not outspoken, but I didn't get energy from being opinionated about everything. I was energetic about driving editorial teams, trying to find out, okay, what we can really accelerate in the leadership role. And it takes a lot of time and energy and face time in every media and your own social media platforms, if you are expected to be opinionated about everything. That is a part in the editor-in-chief role. I think it's a little bit outdated, that it's maybe 80-20. 80% you need to, okay, doesn't matter if you have leadership experience or you are digital, or if you have great ideas about how to run this media the next years. It's very much about, okay, to drive the public opinion, which is also important. So I'm thinking that my more diverse leadership roles in the media, in the top of the media businesses, could be a way forward. I mean, I know I struggled myself with that part of, because you only have so many hours, and you only have a job that is so time consuming. You need to sort of pick your fights. And if you're fighting against something, or if you're fighting for something that you not truly believe is actually giving an edge to anything that you really want to succeed with, then it becomes a struggle, and you can't really do both, in my opinion. So yeah, maybe there's a room for more diverse or different roles. Then how does an editor-in-chief look like, and what is the role for them? Media CEOs also, what is the core assignment for them, and should it be more delegated, different roles? We have a tendency, and I'm thinking, a lot of people have that, and maybe I have it myself, but we like to have a lot of responsibility and power within our own area. And the more we can get, it makes you blind, I think. You can't see that you are not actually doing the best job right now, because you're hanging on to, you want to be, the last one who makes that decision, and you want to be a part of that, and you want to have, it's your opinion out there. I don't think it's an ideal leadership vision in the reality that media is in right now.
Speaking of where media is in right now, if we take it back slightly, right? I've certainly seen this in a contact of mine, or even say a good friend of mine in the American media industry, Tony Bangert. Shout out to you. He did a LinkedIn post the other day about the short-term thinking in not just media, but in leadership generally speaking, because you are so worried sometimes, especially in the United States, but even in other countries as well, where that short-sightedness of only making short-term beneficial decisions drive you to a state where it's very difficult to build a long-term sustainable business, especially when you take it down to middle management, where you have to deliver this month or this quarter, and if you don't, you're out. But if we look on the flip side of that, there is a risk aversion as well to it, and I think you just touched on that. If you were to look at one risk that media companies should have taken years ago, but they didn't, what risk do you think that should have been that they took, and what could potentially have been the outcome?
I mean, one risk they took that I don't think everyone, again, declaration, it's so easy to be super smart
Yeah,
in hindsight,
hindsight is
right?
2020, right? So
But what comes to mind is everything social media, like Facebook. I was also a part of when we did Meet to Express, converting it from a broadsheet paper to a like news brand, targeting a younger audience. I think it was like 90% SoMe traffic, like starting from zero. And the minute Facebook sort of shut off the hose, then it was done. That was the window at that point. But some of the more established media who just completely closed their eyes and just went 200 an hour on the Facebook freeway, that was a mistake. And before that, obviously, just putting everything out on the internet for free, the most precious. Again, what is your core product? I mean, can you think of any industry who would have done that in that manner? I mean, if you're Mercedes and building cars, would you sort of just giving it away for
no,
free, and then
crazy
okay,
now.
but you can buy the tires with us, or do you know what I mean? It's not like it wasn't a one day decision and then it led to this. But again, for me, it's a part of my constant way to navigate in what is the right decision, because again, no one knows. And right now, it's also for me, it's also not a race, but you are looking for people who are confident enough and also sort of know enough to make a good decision regarding the future, considering what media you're working with or for, because it's different. It's different. What is the heritage? What is the DNA of that media? What is the purpose? And I think those people are hard to find who understands what are they in, what is the right way to go forward with this brand or this media, what is the purpose, where we have a tendency to sort of completely like remake things or do something that doesn't correlate with the true values of either that company or that media. So again, it's for me, it's a matter of being trying not to do the same mistakes and taking some risks, but taking the right ones, and not putting, no matter what you do, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is not the same as not wanting to be super courageous and do new stuff because you should. That is also not putting all your eggs in one basket. If you're not giving the chance to the right people, or you're trying something new, or exploring different markets, or different revenue models, then you're also just doing something in one way. But the risk of just, for example, just saying any traffic, Facebook is the new paperboy of the media. Perfect. We can distribute our content for, zero, and then, whoops, wake up call. You're not just paying for it. You are paying with your core product, your only valuable asset, which is your content.
Yeah. I think we can keep this part of the conversation going forever. I think, and I think I could keep talking to you forever as well. But at some point, we're going to have to round off, and most likely we'll have you back on another episode in the not too distant future. I always round things off on this podcast with asking how many cups of coffee you have per day, Pernille. So, how many cups of coffee do you have per day?
Yeah, you warned me about this. So. No, to be honest, I don't count my cups of coffee, but I can say that I start my day a lot of days in the week actually with a run in the morning. It works for me. So half a cup of instant coffee is what I need before I go for a run. 2 instant cups of coffee in the morning before I even go out the door, and then I'll have coffee during the day.
Yeah,
everything caffeine.
So that the coffee gets me going and keeps me going as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I have to admit, I was a bit intimidated interviewing, someone like you with your background. But thank you so much for building my confidence going into this, and thank you so much for your answers. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
All
Thank
right.
you for
We'll
having me.
talk soon. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.